Hey, what's up guys? It's Mike Doherty with SKYTREE Investments, full-time real estate investor and also realtor with Keller Williams. Today I want to take you on a property tour of 34 Evergreen. It's a 5-unit multifamily commercial property in Hartford, Connecticut. So we have five residential units here, and the reason why it's commercial is because it's over 4 residential units. Anywhere, at least in the state of Connecticut, anything over 4 residential units is considered commercial property. So that does change financing, it changes insurance, it changes a lot of things. But I want to take you through what I look for when I'm evaluating property, either for clients, or if I'm going to list it, or if I'm going to buy it myself. So as we walk through, first thing I see here is we got architectural shingles, which means the roof's, on the newer side. It's probably, with the age of this one, probably anywhere from 10 to 15 years old. In my opinion, this is a 30-year roof, so I know I still have a little bit of life left. Their gutters could use some work. It was probably a single-family house at some point. It's now been converted to a 5-unit residential apartment building. It's a Victorian home. We're just over the border in West Hartford, so as far as location's concerned, it's good. I wouldn't have any problems living here or managing it myself. Some other things I'm noticing right off the bat is we do have replacement windows, so that's good. Replacement windows are a huge capital expenditure. That's something that I won't have to budget for. That's really good. You'll notice one natural gas meter. So I like the fact that it's gas and not oil as far as heating is concerned, but the one gas meter tells me that it's probably a single furnace, which means it's an owner-paid expense. So that's something I definitely want to factor when running my analysis. And after this, we'll actually go back home, look at the spreadsheet, check out the income and expenses, and compare it to the property tour today and see if it actually makes sense. As we kind of come around to the rear of the building here, driveway seems to be in pretty good shape. Nothing major I would plan to repair here. 2-car garage. What I like to do with my properties is you could rent them to the tenants or include it in rent, but I found pretty good success in actually renting these for about $150 a bay, at least in Hartford County, to either the tenants or non-tenants. A lot of people always need storage, and this is a great opportunity to get an extra little cash flow. So I'd probably, in my analysis, I'd factor about $300 a month in additional rent for this. And again, I can rent it to my current tenant here or an outside tenant. All right, so let's make our way inside and check out what the units look like. So what's kind of cool about this property and unique is the mailboxes. A lot of historic nature in them. They look classic. Doesn't really help your cash flow at all, but I definitely think if you're a renter here, that's an extra, little touch. I do like the keyless entry. Definitely guilty of losing a bunch of keys throughout my landlord years. So as we approach here, very well kept, not much going on, but a lot of the old classic details like this, the stained glass windows, a lot of natural light. So if I'm a renter coming in here, this is a pretty good start. Let's make our way to the most important part, which is probably the basement. I want to look at the utilities. All right, so now we're in the basement. I know it's not the most exciting, but it is the most important. What I'm looking for here in the basement is any water dampness, any seepage, groundwater, or water coming through the window sills here, or any of the bricks leaking. It actually looks to be in really good shape. This is an early 1900 built house, but honestly, it's in really good shape. I don't see any major repointing needed. It's pretty dry. You have a dinosaur of a boiler here. It's not in use, but what this tells me is that it was just really expensive to remove, so they just left it. And this is the single furnace, and it's a Well McLean, which is actually a very good brand. I have that in my personal house. So this heats the entire building. So it is a landlord expense. So when we go back home and run the numbers, I want to make sure that I'm definitely including that. So typically with multifamily properties is that the landlord always pays for water, sewer for the most part. Typically the heat is actually split out and it's a tenant paid utility, but for this particular 5-unit, there's just one boiler. And if we come around here, we can see what the electrical looks like. And I can see here there's just one electrical panel. So this is also owner paid electricity. A lot of times you'll see, 4 or 5. If it's a 5-unit, you'll see 5 different breakers and maybe a 6th for the owner's meter, which means the tenants are paying their electricity. But in this case, there's just one. But what I do like about this is it's not fuses. So this has been updated. You got a 100 gauge wire here, and it's all breakers. I don't see evidence of knob and tube wiring, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be in the walls because it's an older built home, and it's just not conducive to rip down the walls and rewire everything. So I guess bottom line here is it's dry. We got an old boiler here not in use. We have a newer, about a 15-year-old, 20-year-old Well-McLean gas boiler, so it's efficient. It runs a lot cleaner than oil. I don't see any evidence of any underground oil tank here. And as we make our way to the water heater, there's just one water heater again. So this shows me that it's owner paid, so landlord paid heat and hot water, water sewer from the city of Hartford, heat, gas, CNG, and electricity. So I have to factor all that into my numbers. I got to pay for heat, electricity, water, sewer, and hot water. And as long as the rental income's high enough, it still might make sense. It's not an ideal situation because you're always going to have tenants taking more showers or keeping their lights on and not turning them off, especially if they're not paying it. So something to keep in mind. And yeah, I think that's all set for it down here. All right, so as I said before, this is a legal 5-unit multifamily apartment building. This is commercial financing because it's over 4 units. Anything over 4 residential units is considered commercial. So we have unit 1 right here that's occupied, unit 2 right here that's also occupied, and then units 3, 4, and 5 are all upstairs that I'll show you. This right here is actually a bonus unit. It's a 6 unit. It's not zoned as a 6 unit, but you could go to the town. There's nothing that really, it has a form of egress. This really isn't big enough to be an apartment, so I think highest and best use is probably an office of some sort. Although there's no bathroom, you could create a little bathroom here for maybe a small-time accountant, a lawyer. Again, we're in a popular area for a lot of accountants, attorneys. You can maybe even have a little therapist in here, clean up the walls, but probably too small to be an apartment. So, but it is an extra value add opportunity for additional rental income. So now let's come upstairs. So everything appears to be in pretty good shape. You have unit 3 over here, unit 4 down the hallway here, and unit 5 here. They're all occupied, so we're not going to go in today, but if it's something that checks out on paper, I would schedule a new showing and get into all the units. All right, so now that we're back home, let's analyze that property we just saw, which is 34 Evergreen. So here's an MLS view of the property. This is exactly the same building we saw. This is where we saw it in the first place, and got all the photos of it. So here you can see the taxes, you can see the square footage, a description of it. So you got a 5-unit property with a bonus 6 unit that we saw before, the west end of Hartford, so we know the location's good. It consists of 4 studios, 2 1-bedroom, 1-bath units. All the units have been updated in the last 10 years and some within the last 2 years. Roof is approximately 15 years old, which is what we estimated. And then confirming that 1 central heating system and all utilities are landlord paid. So this is a big one we want to pay attention to. So a lot of times when you see something on the market like this, you want to request income and expenses. Because I'm a realtor, I can already see that. So I would just come here. I would look at my financials here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at this. So I'm going to see what does the studio go for. So I know it's rented for $1,000. Studio another $1,000, $1,100, $900, $1,100, and then we know this bonus studio is vacant. It must have been rented for $675 at some point in time. And these are the garages, which are currently not rented, but as I mentioned before, could be rented for $150. And here's what's the most important right here. What do my expenses look like? So taxes $11,500 or $11,115, which is what the MLS said, so that's accurate. Current owner pays $3,500. Now that doesn't mean that you're going to pay $3,500. That just means he does. But let's use $3,500 as an estimate for our income and expenses. He pays approximately $3,162 a year, in electricity. These are all annual numbers. So these are monthly rents, which will get us an annual rent roll. And And then these are all annual expenses. So all utilities are paid by landlord, which is what we thought. And then this just goes through some of the things that you can do with it to increase the value. So again, renting out that bonus studio or converting maybe some of these studios to officially 1-bedroom units so you can charge more rent. So a lot of things we can do with this. But from here, the next thing to do is I want to go and I want to punch all these numbers into my handy dandy spreadsheet, which is right here. So I know the first thing I'm going to do is look at the sales price. I know it's offered at $515,000. I'm then, which I already did all this to save time. So I entered all the types of apartments there are. I entered their current rent roll. So 1,000, 1,100, 900, 1,100. I left that bonus student vacant, or bonus studio 0 because it's vacant. And then currently the garages are all not rented. So in blue, I have my current rent roll. In green, this is my projected, it's called pro forma. What are my pro forma rents? So these are my market rents. A lot of times when you're analyzing property, you have a lot of tired landlords that are doing it themselves and they just don't want to increase rent because they don't want to lose a tenant. So you find a lot of under market rents. But I know through being a local realtor and investor in the area, I know a large studio could rent up to $1,350 based on comps. And I find these comps, you can ask a realtor to find them, or you can go on MLS yourself, but these are all my projected rents. What these apartments are worth in current market standards, okay? So again, blue is current, green is pro forma. And so now as we're looking in, we're gonna punch in all the expenses. I got my $11,000 in taxes, I got my $3,500 in insurance. Maintenance, you always want to factor maintenance. A general rule of thumb, and that property was in fairly good condition, but you always want to factor maintenance. I always use 5% of the gross rental income. So all I do is I take $61,000, which is the annual rent. I take my monthly rent of $5,000 times 12, get my annual, take that annual rent, and I multiply it by 0.05. And that gets me my annual repairs and maintenance budget. Right? I generally want to stick to around that. I want to put that much away every year for ongoing maintenance. Management, it looks like he was self-managing, but if I plan to have a property manager, I would want to factor this number in. Typically in our area, property management costs around 8 to 10% of gross rents collected. So let me say that again, 8 to 10% of gross rents collected. So if my annual rent roll is $61,000 and I did want a property manager, I think I could easily get someone at 8% because it's a pretty good area. So I'm going to say equals that times 0.08, and I can punch in my number here at $4,800 a year in management. But if I'm going to self-manage, maybe I leave that out. The water sewer, we know from the income and expenses that was sent to us, it's $1,700 a year. The owner does pay for electricity, so we got to factor that at $3,100 a year. The heat was $4,300 a year. And then one thing I didn't see on there, but it should be included, is lawn and snow. Are you going to mow your own lawn? Are you going to shovel your own driveway? Probably not, especially if you're a couple towns away or you're on vacation and you got to pay someone. So I always factor lawn and snow. Generally speaking, out of 26 months of the year, it's probably going to be lawn cutting season. So I'm 26 weeks of the year. So I'm going to factor about $2,500 a month for that. And the trash is city. Taxes are high enough; they come out of your taxes, so it's included in your taxes there. So that's good for trash. So now let's see if this property makes sense. I have a net operating income of $31,000. Okay, after my debt service, I have a 1.05 debt service cover ratio. Usually look for 1.2. My return on investment is 1.1%, and my cap rate, which is just in commercial, you look at cap rate 6.1%. So honestly, at the $515,000 offer price, this isn't a good deal. I would not offer $515,000 because I think I can make more money in other investments. Now, that doesn't mean I can't offer less. So if I change this purchase price to maybe $475, what does that look like? 6.7 cap, and my net income after all my expenses, my mortgage, everything is $3,700 a month. That's not terrible. And again, this is before raising any rents. So now if you look at my green column here, and I got my rents, again, everyone seems to be, it doesn't say it here, but everyone's on a month-to-month lease, which means all I have to do is give them a 30 days notice and I can increase their rent. There is a chance they could leave, or there's a chance I would have to evict them. But as a landlord and investor, that's something you have to consider. So let's just assume that everyone has agreed to my increased rent. So it's only another $200 a month, which is a lot of money, but let's say maybe I have a couple vacancies and I fill them at these current rents. Assuming all the expenses stay the same, I would make $17,000 a year in profit. That's my cash flow after all my expenses and after all my debt service. Okay, so my mortgage payment, assuming a $475,000 purchase price at a 6.8% interest rate, which is the current interest rates right now, and a 25% down payment, which is going to be required in commercial financing. My mortgage payment is $2,300 a month, and I'm making $3,700 a year in cash flow. So, without raising rent, it's probably not something I'm interested in, even at $475. But I really like the area. I think the house is in really good condition. The mechanicals were in good shape. The roof wasn't that old, and I have an opportunity to raise rents. No one's locked into any long-term leases, so I have that ability. And for me, it's really close to my house. So this is something I would consider. The next step here is I would reach out to the landlord or agent that he's working with, and I try to get in to see the condition of the units. If everything checks out, I would probably offer around $475,000 for this property.